Good evening, and welcome to the show. Tonight, I shall, as always, on Ask Sebastian, attempt to answer some of you, the viewers, more unusual questions. Starting with this one from someone called Brian in Tooting, who asks, other than my many archaeological endeavours, what other moments shine brightly in my memories? Well, Brian, as you know, I've worn many hats in my time, and each has its own tales to tell. But one that comes immediately to mind is the occasion when I had an uninterrupted chinwag with Sir Paul McCartney. And you might be surprised to hear that this was back when I was employed as a pilot at a parachute centre in Kent, of all places. As I recall, this was back around 79, or perhaps even 80. No, what am I thinking? It was 1979, as the Parachute Club was my first piloting engagement after obtaining my pilot's licence. Anyway, I reported for duty one Saturday morning, only to find that the owner of the club had omitted to tell me that he'd rented the entire place to Sir Paul McCartney and his band at the time, Wings, in order to film some promotional videos for the album Back to the Egg. I must confess I'd grown weary of the video making process ever since I'd had to go through it all, back with Electroniche some years earlier. However, it is no secret that I've always been something of a fan when it comes to Sir Paul. Now then, remember, this was the 1970s, back when mobile phones, emails, and what have you were the things of science fiction. Also, at the time I was living in a B&B in Folkestone and didn't receive any form of notification whatsoever from either the owner of the club or the other jump masters. Obviously, I wasn't the only one who hadn't heard about the plans for that weekend, meaning, of course, that there were a fair few other club members who turned up with smiles on their faces, expecting business as usual, only to leave in a foul mood when they were told that the club was closed for the weekend. But I have to say, the exciting part for me was when Paul took me aside whilst they broke for lunch and asked if there was any chance I could take him up for a quick spin. Now, ordinarily, I wouldn't think of entertaining such a frivolous act, but I must confess, at the time, I was a little starstruck. Therefore, before I'd really thought it through, Paul and I were among the clouds. What a joy it was just being in the man's presence. As I recall, we spoke the entire time on a number of subjects, including, of course, the music industry. And when I mentioned my time in Hamburg, well, that was it. Paul was off, rambling away about his time in that city with John and the rest of the guys, saying that those days had been among his most treasured memories. And I must admit, even though we were at 5,000 feet over a lush and verdant landscape, the scenery very much took a back seat as I listened to a living legend talk so fondly of his youth. Anyway, I hope that answers the question, though truthfully I could tell that story for hours. In fact, did you know that a very young, rambling Guilfoyle was actually there during the filming of the video? Not that I knew it at the time. After all, he was just 15. Apparently, he and his father were among those that turned up that day, not knowing that the club was closed. But I understand his father went home, leaving him watching the day's recording. Not only that, but he also travelled back down the next day to watch. And according to Rambling Guilfoyle, he actually bluffed his way into the after-shoot party and got to hang out, as it were, with the entire band. Anyway, time has beaten us once again. So, it just remains for me to say, may the blessings of Mother Compass be upon you.